if we have any experiences that puff us up, it's not of God. You know a tree by its fruit, and I think the fruit ultimately is humility. Saint Isaac, Abba Isaac the Syrian, says that if we have all of the virtues but we don't have humility, we're lost. Saint Paisios had a beautiful image. He said, "You have a big bowl of wonderful soup, and a bird flies over, and a dropping lands in the soup. You have to throw the whole soup out and the bowl too."
Mm.
That dropping is pride. A little bit of pride can ruin everything. Um, and so it's humility. But Abba Isaac, he said that humility is the very raiment, the very clothing of the Godhead. It's humility that the devil who fell out of pride is unable to even imitate. Um, so humility, I think, is the rule.
That's also something really fascinating because even in a conversation with Christopher, that's something that kept coming up on both conversations. The first one was very heavily focused on what you're saying, and then the second one was, I would say, a different version of that. But I guess for somebody like myself that's very new in the faith, that's sort of finding their way, what does that mean exactly to humble yourself? Is there perhaps a practical way? Obviously, I know prayer and fasting are ways by which we build that, but for somebody that, again, like myself, is new, could you maybe describe what that means? And I've heard St. Basis talk about it like emptying yourself, right? But
Mm-hmm.
again, for somebody that's very new in the faith, they may understand it conceptually, but like the practicality of it, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I suppose the first thing I should say is that I'm not humble. I'm trying to acquire just a little bit of humility in life through the prayers of the saints and my spiritual fathers. Um, I think humility is such a great and wondrous thing that our words are really kind of incapable of speaking about it. Uh, but I think there's certain characteristics. There's certain things that we experience that are maybe humility adjacent, or at least lead us on the path of humility, or can open the way of humility to us. Um, and I think maybe the first one is gratitude.
Mm.
When we begin to recognize that everything good, everything beautiful, everything true is a gift from God, a gift that we're wholly unworthy of, a gift that's been given to us uh, entirely just because he loves us. Um, this day is a gift from God. Every breath is a gift from God. Our health is a gift from God. Our families, the beauty of creation, everything is a gift from God. And when we begin to recognize this I think is one of the central teachings or experiences of the divine liturgy, is to recognize that every good gift comes from above, from our Father of lights, that we have nothing to offer him, nothing to give to him except for or from what he has given to us. So I think there's that gratitude that's closely related to humility, um, and then there's kind of a losing of ourself. Again, Saint Paisios, he talked about the spiritual life, um, like an American rocket ship, right? The rocket ship 10, 9, 8, 7. When it gets to zero, then it lifts off into the heavens. When our ego can get down to zero, we'll find ourselves in the heavens. And so there's this gratitude, There's this recognition that only he matters. I don't matter. Only he matters. Um, but far from leading us to despondency, this actually is our source of joy. Because if only he matters and I don't matter, but I matter to him, and everyone I love matters to him. In fact, those that I don't love, my enemies, matter to him. And all of this, recognizing this, living this, I think helps us to uh, at least, if not walk on the path of humility, walk towards the path of humility.
You you know one of the I would say, I mean, I don't even know if I would call it an argument, but it's very one of the things that fascinates me the most about Orthodoxy is these the paradoxes, right? If correct me if I'm wrong, like how Jesus says, you know, he who loses himself will find himself, and it seems like humility seems to be that, right? In order for you to raise or to be raised to the glory of God, you must completely humble yourself and completely eliminate any I would say any attachment to your identity in some ways, right? So in losing your identity, you gain your identity. And you know, Christopher mentioned that there's all of these different paradoxes throughout the Bible. But I guess one of the one of the arguments that I at least thought was valid when I before I came into the church when I was an atheist was that, well, how is it that a God would not want us to, you know, be great and be successful and, you know, have wealth, for example? Why is that deemed to be a terrible thing? And I think it came from a place of misunderstanding, but it's still something that I'm struggling with because, you know, I have children. I have to take care of them. I understand that, you know, having a good career in finances is important, not necessarily for the aggrandizement of my own ego and whatever I may think of myself, but because it is what I think would be necessary to provide for my family and then their families afterwards. And that's something that I'm trying to reconcile. And I'm hoping maybe you can help me with that. How do we build ourselves in a way that we can provide, especially as men, right? How can we provide for our families in the way that we think we should without necessarily losing the aspect of humility? I don't know if those things are mutually exclusive, and I would love to get your take on that because I'm still not really sure how to reconcile that.
Yeah, there's a beautiful story from the villages in Greece about a woodcutter, and this woodcutter he had a large family, and every morning he would wake up early. He would go into the landowner's forested area, and he'd cut down the wood. It's very physically demanding work, and at the end of the day, he would get the little bit of money that was owed to him, and he would go back to his family, and he would take out his bouzouki, his Greek guitar, and he would play music, and together with his wife and his children, every night they would dance and they would sing and they would celebrate the beauty and the gift of life. The landowner was so impressed with his humility, his work ethic, his devotion to his family, that he offered him this very exalted position on his estate. And the man says, give me a few days to think about it. And so the next day he wakes up early, he goes, he cuts the wood, he comes home, and his smallest child brings him his bouzouki. But he's thinking about this job that he's going to take. He says, no, 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 no. I have too much on my mind. Another time. The next day, the same thing happens. On the third day, the landowner comes to the woodcutter and asks him, have you decided to accept the position? He said, no. And the landowner's confused. He says, but you can have more money. You can better take care of your family. All of these things you can do. And he says, I didn't even take the job. And for 2 days, the job has robbed me of my wealth. The true wealth, true joy, and I'm not saying that we don't need to take care of the physical needs, the health, and all these things of our family, but you know, is to live life as the gift from God. That this is true wealth. This is what we as fathers must instill in our children. Because if our children recognize that everything is a gift from God, wherever they find themselves in life, they'll have joy. They'll have hope. Um, the world can take away everything from us. The martyrs lost their lives, thrown into prison. Their wealth was taken away. Their land was taken away. The one thing that can't be taken away, and we see this in the martyrs, is Christ. St. Nicholas Cavaciela says that Christ is more closely and intimately connected to us than our very bones. You know, they could take the head of St. Catherine of St. George, but they couldn't take Christ from them. And so if we can share Christ with our children, if we can share a life of gratitude and thanksgiving and hope and humility, then we'll be like that woodcutter. We'll be wealthy beyond our dreams.
I see what you're saying. Okay, let me ask you this. What is the role you think of the sort of like this hero's journey that I think a lot of us feel called to, right? Um, is there a reconciliation with that and also having a family? Um, so, for example, me personally, I would say, to a fault, I'm an overly ambitious person, and I think that is something that I'm struggling with quite a bit. And part of me feels this calling to do something greater than myself, to go out there and I mean, for lack of a better word, find an adventure or conquer something, right?